Bruce. Lovely to be with you. It's always a pleasure.
We've got a very, very exciting and interesting guest today, and head coach of the Arizona Wildcats, Tommy Lloyd. Does he go by Tommy or Thomas?
He goes by Tommy. Yeah, yeah. So I'm super excited. Known Tommy a long time, and I think a lot of people are going to enjoy his story of how he's come to be where he is today. And boy, oh boy, that is big time.
It is big time in Arizona. A lot of people, of course, in my ilk will remember Arizona Wildcats. Lute Olson, the late Lute Olson, who Basketball Hall of Fame. They won the championship, I believe, in '96. And Lute's been a friend of Australian basketball. He's come out many times and did clinics. Um, that year, '96, I believe they won the NC2A with Mike Bibby and Jason Terry. What other guards did they have? They were really a guard
I mean,
oriented.
they've got their alumni is like incredible.
Well, Gilbert Arenas, Andre Iguodala, Aaron, the guy,
Steve Kerr.
Steve Kerr. The guy that played for years with the Spurs. God damn, here's me doing my research again.
That's right. That's
Um,
right. But they're impressive.
a slew of NBA players. I mean, and that
The venue's impressive. I want to go.
Aaron, the guy with the dreadlocks, hit the big last two.
Gordon.
Eric Gordon,
Yeah.
University of Arizona Wildcat, baby.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's do some housekeeping before we get stuck in and get Tommy
Yeah.
here on Zoom. To our sponsors, Brian Curl Basketball, of our first and foremost, the greatest supporter of our podcast and all the programs that Brian Curl Basketball does, including the Academy, Women in Sports, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island camps and clinics, the all-girl camps and clinics, the work that they do with kids at risk. Brian, great program, maybe the best in all of Australia. Thank you to Chris Weir from FIT Education, the RTO on the go, another great supporter. They look after our kids' certificates and diplomas that are doing the Brian Curl Academy. And he's agreed to come on the podcast. So he's another one on a long list, who we will get on here. And to Big Dog Sports, to our good friend Ryan Stolberg. Now, is Benny Thompson in
Yeah,
cahoots?
Benny's involved, and I don't know the percentages, but I know Benny T's involved. Benny Thompson. Yeah.
Yeah, well, a
Benny's
legend.
got his fingers in a lot of pies.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Okay, so 4 and 20. So we can call him 4 and 20. Um, anyway, Ryan, look at huge shortage of gyms. This is one of the things that we're going to eventually get somebody from Basketball Queensland and ask what is their involvement as far as helping develop facilities.
Yes.
Can't really develop the game without facilities. So, hey, Ryan and Ben, Big Dog Sports, you want a court in your own backyard, they're the place to go. Now we have time for just some quick shout outs here.
Yes, we do. Just quickly, yes, before Tommy's on.
Well, we got both our women and men, our opals and boomers, won their, I don't know what this thing is
It's
for.
it's a Trans-Tasman. It's just a little series, and it's obviously not our number one Australian team, and it probably I got no doubt it's also not the number one New Zealand team, but it was competitive.
Yeah, it would be. I'm wondering if this is part of the FIBA qualifications for the Asia.
I'm not certain. I can't answer that question,
Well,
but
here's another
because it's
interesting.
a three-game series, because they play on Friday night in Sunny Coast, and then they go over to New Zealand to play in Hamilton 2 nights after that. So it's pretty quick. They've just basically
One game in Australia, two in New Zealand.
no. The next game played last night in Adelaide,
Okay.
and then Sunshine Coast tomorrow night,
Okay.
and then back over to New Zealand.
Right.
So Yeah,
Well,
and it's good. It's good that they're, you know, younger players being exposed to international basketball. So it's good. Big fella called Wessels, I'd never heard of before, played.
right.
He did, and he was solid.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, mate. Well, listen, you got any? I mean, Daniels and Giddy were at the game. Did you see Giddy played for like his
Yeah.
mates?
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
funny.
Thanks. And that is great. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
that
It's
just shows who he is. Like he's just a young Aussie. His mates are his mates. That doesn't
and he'll
change.
be waiting on Chicago Bulls. Like he's now going to be eligible for to re-sign,
Yeah,
get off his rookie contract. They could sit it out and then sign him. As soon as
he's got to be on a
they
big
start.
contract.
Start. One would think. And of course, we know that Dyson Daniels was named the most improved.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
he was right up there in most improved player, and he was right in the top three of best defensive players.
yeah,
That's huge,
that's huge.
very much so. So, I mean, we have a lot to be proud of. We got NBL One North has started. Um, this game will have taken place before this podcast gets produced, but big rivalry game this weekend between the Spartans, those Southern District Spartans, and the Brisbane Capitals
Oh, okay.
at the Spartans. So, and the Spartans split. They won at Logan, then lost on the Sunshine Coast. Hard road trip. I mean, we're just
Yeah.
not geared up for that. And then our Brisbane Capitals got whacked
By the
by
Wizards.
Wizards.
Yeah,
Um,
so that's
Shooting percentage.
D-Mac getting it over Vandy.
Yeah, as he did last year in the opener, who D's Wiz, not D's Nuts, D's Wiz, their team manager asked, when are we going to get Daryl McDonald on? I said, mate, love to have him on. I just don't have a contact number for him.
I'll
So
get it.
Wiz is, you're going to get, because you know what? You're the source, the sorcerer. All right, well, let's leave it at that until we can get our special
Yeah,
guest,
but
Tommy Lloyd, on.
and any minute we'll have Tommy on and join us. Thanks. Hey, yeah, so this will only be so you didn't have to get your hair and makeup done because this will only be an
Oh,
audio podcast. But anyway,
What?
you look fantastic, man.
Oh shit! I was just yeah. I thought this was gonna be big time. I thought I was gonna blow up in Australia.
you will.
Change the
You
course
will
of my
blow
life.
up. Coach Bruce Palmer, we've not had the pleasure of meeting, but
How are you, Bruce?
I'm well, mate, and thank you so much for doing this.
Good.
Uh,
So hey,
this
give me
will
give you guys the
help.
thing is as we tie into this. You know who lives about 15 minutes from me?
Ronnie
Rob
Radliff.
Ratliff.
Ronnie the Rat.
Hey, let's get Ronnie on here. That's a good. Is he turning up to your training and stuff?
Yeah, for sure. He comes and doesn't say much, but what he says, he's usually right.
Well, you make sure you say good day to Ronnie, huh?
I will.
And
I will.
and
No.
and and, and get him my number. Can you? I'll get his number for me, and I'll chase him up because he'd be great to have on
I'm
here
gonna
as
send it to you
well.
right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, he's. It was totally random how I kind of came across him here, but he's a great guy.
Yeah, he is, and he had a lot of influence on the Brisbane Bullets, but also the NBL at the time that he was a great player, mate.
Oh yeah.
Um, so
Tommy, how because you guys have met in Australia, is that right, Steve? You guys, Tom,
I think yeah, we kind of come across a couple times, come across each other a few times, and then because I was living down at Auchenflower.
yeah,
I
so
mean, I
there's the connection is Billy Backamus.
yeah, for sure.
And so Billy sent Tommy out to Australia. Well, you guys talked about it, right? And then you said, "Yeah, stuff it. I'm going to do it." And brought your beautiful wife along with you, Chanel. And if she happens to be floating around, I'd love to see her pretty face. Is she
Let's
around?
see if we can grab her a little bit. She's the grandkids waking up from a nap, so I think she's
Oh,
dealing with
okay,
that right now.
okay, man, that's another level as well. But
so how long did you come out to play out here, Tommy?
Well, basically, I would say I was a glorified exchange student. I wasn't good enough to play in the NBL, and then Steve kind of brought me out there, and and I played for the West Brisbane Falcons by our fearless leader, Bill Ellis. So
Yeah.
Billy Ellis
Hey.
is a great guy. We've stayed in touch.
Yeah, well,
So
Billy and Bruce are really tight.
okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, Billy's been within the last, I'd say, 18 months, been in my backyard on the piss.
Okay.
If that's not a shocker. Uh, he came down and visited.
That's
His
so
daughter's
good.
playing over here.
I love
And
it. I
his
love it when
son.
you use your Aussie slangs, mate. You're good
I have
at
like three Aussie jargons, I can go to. Um,
it.
and so yeah, so I love Bill Ellis. He was a great guy to me. Actually, it was a crazy thing, because I graduated college, and part of my requirement for graduation was I had to write a thesis, and I was a biology major, so I did it on koala fecal pellets, and actually did some stuff out in the field for Bill, and kind of faked my way through a thesis,
That's
and
so
yeah,
funny.
so we got really close with Bill. We really enjoyed him.
And I was mentioning to Bruce that you're and I don't think St. Laurie's appreciate where someone who coached in their program where you're at now, and that's something that we should connect again. Who was the
That
guy?
was my first coaching job. The good bloke Noel Mather hired me, and
Correct.
you obviously got me hired, and I went there. And what's funny is, because I think I'd played after college over here. I was with you guys for a bit, and then we tried to make it longer, but we couldn't get a visa
Yes.
because you had set it up something where the Bullets were going to hire me as a junior development officer and all this
See,
stuff. And
he still blames me, and I keep saying this is a debate that you and I've had for a long time. I said, mate, don't hang around here. Go back to the States where the real money is. And we won't even like an article about your recent contract to 2030. That's just insane. So you can thank me at another
hey, hey, hey,
time.
hey, 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 hey. The dollar amount in that's actually in pesos. I'm close to Mexico, so it's in pesos, not U.S. dollars. But hey, I
Australia
was
to Europe,
Stevie.
though,
I was
wasn't it?
coaching for the huh?
Australia to Europe. You went
Yeah,
from,
I went
but
Australia to Europe, but what I was getting at both places I coached. I was a youth coach,
yes,
and did a little bit of playing, and I really enjoyed the coaching a lot more than playing, even at that
okay,
young age. And so, I mean, obviously I knew the direction I was heading, and I was pretty serious about it. I mean, I still have, dug somewhere deep notebooks that I was writing and taking notes in back in the day. And someday I gotta find them and pull them out because, like, who knows, there might be some genius stuff because my mind was pure then. I wasn't institutionalized by this crazy game. And so yeah, so no, I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed my time at St. Laurie's. Like, I mean, so many years have gone by that I've kind of lost contact with a lot of those boys, but for a while they would stay in touch with me, and just a great group of young men, and because it wasn't a basketball school, and it just showed me I brought a little passion to it, and how easy it was to get a group of boys, to follow that passion. And we actually had some success and won some games. And yeah, it was a great time. I mean, such good memories.
yeah. Noel was a good man. I'm pretty certain. I'm not pretty certain. I know he's retired, and I've lost contact with Noel as well. But I have some other people there that are involved in lorries. I should chase them up and get you connected to their basketball program just from a hey, g'day, and this is a pretty
What what
famous thing
what?
for them to have.
So hey, what kind of stories are we telling in this podcast? Like the real stories, or kind of like just the
Mate,
the the family friendly
It's
stories?
this
called
is
violations
unfiltered.
and insults. So we
Huh?
can go ahead and strip it bare. We can.
Okay. Well, there's a great St. Laurie story. So, Steve, I had no money, and you were helping me out a little bit. I had an apartment that's since been torn down that was on Milton Road. I could walk to Auchenflower Stadium, so I'd have to take the bus or the train, whatever, and head to St. Laurie's, and then I was substitute teaching for them, so to
That's
to make a little
right.
bit of money,
I forgot
and
that.
and and I think one night you might have taken me out it was a long night. Might have been a little Bundy involved and a little Forex, and then I got, like at, I don't know, 7 a.m. I get a call. Mr. Lloyd, can you come? Can you come substitute today? I'm like, I had no money, so of course I did, and so I went and I struggled through the day, and this is such an Australian story. So I was, maybe like third graders and great kids, but I'm probably not in peak form, feeling a little rough from the night before. And some young kid comes up to me. He's like, sir. And I'm like, yeah, yeah. And he's like, you smell a lot like my dad today, you know? And I thought, well, your dad's probably a good bloke. That's the only thing I thought right there. So, uh,
Oh
love,
yeah,
love my Aussies.
yeah. Well, mate, as I know, you definitely made an impression, and you still got a lot of contacts here in Australia. I know, like the Barracksopolos, and it's a funny how that meeting Billy and Kathy coming over to Australia when I was 15, and what that has evolved is pretty amazing. But let's just keep on your journey, because I think the European part of your journey after Australia is an incredibly important part of what you made. Look, I think the one thing that you're not only you've obviously an unbelievable coach, is you're a great connector and networker, and I think that's been a building block of your assistant coach career. Would that be right?
For sure. I mean, in order to make an impact in the U.S. at the NCAA level over here, you know, it's more than being just a good coach. I mean, the guys that kind of move through the system faster, the guys that are able to recruit, and so I was given that opportunity right away. And when I was at Gonzaga, it's where I started. I know a lot of Australians might hate Gonzaga, except for Paul Rogers and Axel Dench, two great Aussies that were
John
at
Ridley.
Gonzaga before I was. And John really, yeah, it was funny. Way before John. John was way before I was there. Like, he's so old. I don't think people realize how old really is. He's probably what,
He's
70?
doing
Is he
well
70
here,
yet?
Tommy.
I know he's crushing it. I stay in touch with him. I love the guy. He's a dear friend.
Yeah,
And how did they finish this year?
they made it in the to semis. They got
Nice,
they
nice.
got knocked out in the uh, they got knocked out and they didn't make the final.
Yeah. A great basketball mind, great
Oh no,
guy.
hang on. Did they make the final, Bruce?
No, they got knocked out by United. Close
That's
game.
right. That's right.
Yeah, it was a thriller. But Tommy, where in Europe were you after you Australia?
Germany,
Germany.
Dusseldorf. Yeah, just outside of Dusseldorf, playing like at, I don't know, third division something, and one of these gigs over in Europe where you could play and they pay you like, I don't know, $1,000 a month. Let's just say an easy number, but you gotta coach the U10s, the U12s, the U14s. So I basically became the youth team coach for everybody. I coached the women for about 3 or 4 weeks before they fired me, and so and the women were great. It was a ton of fun. It was a group of women, moms, stuff like that. And I'm coaching them, and I've never coached women before. But I think it came down to Saturday. There was a conflict whether I could go coach like the U16 boys or the women's team, and I chose the boys. And then they fired me and said I wasn't committed enough. And so yeah, so I was in Germany, and before I went to Europe, I had Gonzaga was kind of the only Division I program I had any real connection with through my high school and junior college coach, a guy named Jeff Rhineland. And um, so yeah, so the coach before Few at Gonzaga was a guy named Dan Munson, and he had just told me, kind of, I'm like, hey, I got a chance to go over to Germany, and he was like, oh, go. I mean, because this is before Gonzaga was the Gonzaga we know of it as today. He was like,
Yeah.
just go over there, and kind of half-heartedly said, hey, keep your eyes open for some players. And what's funny is I went over there and went just had a great time. I love travel and I love people. I love FIBA basketball, so kind of combined all those things. I come back to Gonzaga, and Munson had a great year before I came. He goes to the University of Minnesota, and as part of I was a leftover, and he'd asked Mark, hey, I told this kid Tommy Lloyd, he could be a graduate assistant or help us out, and Few, he's like, yeah, that's fine. And so I literally showed up on the doorstep, having never met Mark Few, on an
Wow.
opportunity given by Dan Munson. And I went there, and
How many
I remind
years?
all you,
How many years?
22. I was 22. It ended up being 22 years.
You were there for 22 years.
22 years. Yeah.
Man, mate, as an assistant coach,
Yeah.
like that's a very long tenure in the one location. That's most unusual, correct?
Very, very, very unusual. But, I think there's reasons it happened, maybe that I don't know, but there's reasons intentionally that I did it. So I'd made a kind of a reputation for myself recruiting in Europe or recruiting overseas, and Coach Few turned me loose. And he's not like this dominant boss that's micromanaging. So he gave me a ton of space and a ton of freedom to kind of, explore and develop myself. And so we had a great run there, and I didn't know anything. I was thankful for the opportunity. Didn't know anything else. I'm a pretty loyal guy, and 1 year turns into two, turns into four, turns into eight, and it got to a point where I had in my contract to be the next head coach should he ever retire. But we were having so much success. He wasn't old, and there's a coach at North Carolina who used to coach for Dean Smith. His name is Bill Guthridge, and he was Dean Smith's right hand man his whole career. And then at the very end of his career, he, got the head coaching job when Dean Smith retired, had it for like 3 years, made a Final Four, won National Coach of the Year, and then he retired. And then that's where Roy Williams, uh, or I think it actually might have went to Matt Doherty and a couple of guys, but Roy Williams eventually comes back to Carolina, where he was kind of a Dean Smith disciple. And I just decided that there's nothing wrong with being Bill Guthridge. And I'm at a place where I was in a community. We love raising our family. And I was an owner in the program. I
Yeah.
wasn't a renter. And I felt like, I was, partially responsible for the success. So it was important that I stay there.
I think the definitely some of the recruits that you made in that time. I mean, we can start with top of the tree type Sabonis, like that's a pretty amazing recruit that you got to Gonzaga. Do you want to talk about that and how that happened?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that happens because I grew up in Kelso, Washington, not far from Portland, Oregon. We had, so it was kind of Bill. You remember Kelso was the kind of the crown jewel of Cowlitz County. Joking, right? Like Kelso Longview, you and I know the rivalry there because of the
Yeah,
Backnesses, and you stayed in Toledo, which is up north in Lewis
it's
County.
even
Like
smaller.
even smaller. So yeah, so it's small town America, and we were Blazer fans, and so of course, I hear the name Arvydas Sabonis for years because he was drafted in like '86. And then he finally came over like in '96 and had a run with the Blazers for a great run. And
Right at the end of
and
his career, right?
at the end of it, yeah, he came over
And he
like in
was
30.
still dominant.
Yeah, great player, unbelievable. Like size, hands, feel, IQ. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think he played 7 or 8 great years in the NBA. And then so obviously I was a fan, and then I'm at Gonzaga. I'm starting to recruit, and I had a relationship with a guy who was a scout for the Blazers, who also happened to had been Arvidas's agent,
Shit.
a guy named Arturo Ortega. And just so doing my research on international basketball, following these FIBA tournaments, and I see like in the FIBA U16s, Sabonis from Lithuania averages like 17 rebounds a game. So I call Arturo. I said, "Hey, you think there's any chance?" And so he called the family, and he ended up connecting us eventually. And yeah, that's where it was from. I mean, just I had enough of the name in my head, and then somehow had a contact, and
That's
uh,
unbelievable. And Demonis wanted his son to go somewhere not like in California. Is that correct?
no, I mean honestly, the whole story is I think his dad would have been okay had he stayed pro. But what's a really cool part of the story is getting to know the family, like I have over the years. His dad really didn't get a lot of choices in his basketball career, and because he was behind he was the Soviet Union for a significant portion of it. So he had just told me, that like you know every generation's job is to make it easier and better for the next generation. And the generation for him got no choices. He was lucky at some point in his career to get a choice. Now his son had his choice from day one, and his son was going to be able to make the choice of what he wanted to do. I think Arvidas would have been okay had he stayed in Europe, but Domus was born in Portland, and he had a
Ah,
couple older brothers when his dad played for the Blazers, and he had a couple older brothers who, are great guys, and they weren't Domus's talents, so their careers ended up stopping earlier. And I think both of the brothers were like, "Hey, we really regret not going to the States and going to college and playing college basketball." And Domus really revered his brothers, so it kind of made sense. And at the time at Gonzaga, we were having enough success. We were a national type program with a profile to take a kid like Domus that made sense. It wasn't a crazy reach, and so it all kind of worked out together. And I'm really proud of Domus and what he's been able to accomplish.
absolutely. I
So
mean,
he
he's a
played
stud.
at Gonzaga. You had another 7 foot bear of a man.
Yeah, yeah. He's on my staff now.
And
I got him
where
Shimmick Karnowski. He's Polish.
holy shit.
Um,
Yeah, he's a
so I'm
brute.
I'm over watching the U17 World Championships in Hamburg, and the U.S. has a great team. I couldn't even list all the guys. I'm sure 10 of the 12 guys played in the NBA, and so I just remember it was during an open recruiting period. We have these periods where we could be out recruiting, and these periods where we can't. Well, it's open, so all the coaches over there. I mean, all the big name coaches, and they're watching all these hot shots from the U.S. Well, I went over and I was hot and heavy on some Canadian kid named Kevin Pangos.
Shit.
And
Oh,
and
shit.
so
A
so I'm watching
stud.
Pangos. I'm watching Pangos kind of by myself, and all these other guys were chasing the US guys. And then I just see this monster 16-year-old duck somebody in front of the basket, turn to his right shoulder, snap off a left-handed jump hook, and I'm like, I need that. And then so while everyone else was looking over there at these studs, was over there and took these other two guys, and I bet if we went back and looked at it, that I got the better end of the deal overall than everybody else, getting two really really impactful guys, and Shimmick Karnowski was a great player at Gonzaga, ended up being the winningest player in the history of NCAA basketball. When he was done, that has probably since been surpassed because COVID and a lot of these kids getting the fifth year of eligibility. But Shimmick had in college, towards the end of his career, he had a serious injury to his back where he had two of his lower discs fused, and um, and so it kind of ended up eventually leading to a bunch of little other injuries,
Yeah.
and so his pro career was cut short, and then so I saw him at Domus's wedding, actually, and it was in the south of France, and I just told Shimmy, hey, you just let me know um, whenever you need a spot to start your coaching career, you're hired. And so he came back here like 3 years ago, and I think he's gonna move on to another job now. But it was awesome having him here. So
Let
it's really
me
cool having those guys.
let me have a pivot. When you looking at and you were a great assistant coach at Gonzaga for 22 years. What are the qualities that you're looking for then with your assistants?
Wow. I think that just for one is just just being an owner, but also understanding you're a part of something bigger yourself. You're an assistant coach. You can have all these great ideas. You don't get the final vote. When one of your great ideas isn't used, you can't take it personal. Um, you know, Find ways to communicate with your head coach in a really effective way. Head coaches have a lot coming at them, but I mean, but they still need to be open to the communication with the assistants and learn how to communicate efficiently with your head coach. For me, I'd learned, Coach Few he's a crazy smart guy. He's really organized in his mind. He has a great ability to only focus on what he thinks impacts winning, but he doesn't overdo things. So it creates a lot of space and a lot of gray area for those working around him to kind of fill the gaps. So but by in the workspace, by he's a little bit of a devil's advocate. So I could say, hey, I think we should look at hedging this ball screen against this team we're playing coming up, and he'd be like, why would we do that? I mean, that makes no, you know what I mean? But what he's doing, he's just challenging you.
Yep.
So what you learn right away is you need to be sharp. You need to be able to defend things. You can't get emotional or take it personal. And I don't even think he sometimes realizes what he was doing, but it's just kind of how his mind works. And then, I mean, there would be times where, I always tell people, he and I'd be, you know, going at it, in the coach's room at halftime before we talk to the team. And I'd be like, man, I want to punch this guy in the face. Like, he's not listening to me. He's arguing with me on everything. And then we'd literally turn, go through the door, go to the players, and he would literally just repeat everything I just said verbatim. And so, like, I just think, learning how to communicate with your head coach is an important thing. And for a head coach, learning how to listen to your assistants is equally important,
And, and did that take a while to get to that stage for you,
I
Tommy?
mean, I'm sure it did. Sure it did. I mean, I'll never forget. I mean, I think he thinks I was crazy. Like, my second week on the job here, I'm this guy who kind of got thrown on him. He doesn't know. And I walked into his office with a few sheets of paper. Said, "Hey, coach, I got some ideas for some plays." And now knowing what I know now, that's crazy. But back then, I was a little naive, and I thought they were good ideas. And so I took him in. He ended up looking at him. He said, "Oh yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad." But he probably walked in. He's like, "Who the hell does this kid think he is?" And so yeah, yeah.
Good.
How many,
Great, great stuff.
I
how
got
many
a tough
assistants do
question.
you have?
Yeah, that was the next
Now,
question.
oh
Yeah.
Yeah.
shit. Now, I mean, the rules have changed a little bit. So, back when I was coming up as an assistant, you had head coach, three assistants, and then you could have some support staff. And now you can have a head coach and five assistants and some support staff. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's a lot of moving parts, but hey, that's at the end of the day, it's a big business. It really is, and it's important that you win because you're paid to perform.
So how do you
Absolutely.
break down then, Tommy, with assistance, the whole recruiting thing, and then we want to talk about the portal and the whole
Yeah,
NIL.
yeah. Well, I mean, how you kind of designate responsibilities. I think you have to think, hey, you have this recruiting roster building piece, that you have to like kind of assign duties within that. Okay, then you have the on court coaching piece,
Yep.
you know, and then you kind of have the scouting and the analytics piece. And you're gonna have certain guys that are going to be involved in all three. You're gonna have maybe other guys that are kind of support staff guys that are supporting just one of those things. And so, yeah, so I mean, like, I would just say, like, your how our rules are basically allowed is your head coach and your five assistants. Those guys are the only guys that are supposed to do any on-court coaching and can do off-campus recruiting. So, those are the guys that have to go out and kind of do player evaluations and things like that. We haven't gotten to the point yet where we have like a true front office or anything like that. So we're kind of doing that. And then behind the scenes, we have like a general manager type guy who basically is involved in anything in our program that involves a dollar sign, and
Okay.
and so he's doing the financial aspect of that stuff. So yeah, so basically, how the recruiting deal works is, assistants kind of divvy up the prospects that we come up with, and it could be a relationship based, it could be a regional thing, where they have these connections, um, and then they kind of work in partnership with me to do the recruiting of them, and for us to kind of get to know them get to know us to evaluate them, him to evaluate us. And then, kind of towards the end, these players all have agents now, and the agents kind of deal directly with our general manager and kind of hammer out a deal. I mean, that's kind of
And,
how it
and,
works there.
and are they hammering out money deals now? Like, are the
Oh,
agents talking? Like, I know there's money on the nil, but like, how do you know
yes.
what someone's worth if you just taking a
Well,
cut?
I mean, it's been a wild, wild west, and I would just say there's been so many changes in the last few years. I mean, I could have never told you 3 years ago what we would be doing now.
Right.
And so now it's finally gotten to the point where it's starting to make a little bit more sense. Where the schools, I mean, they call it revenue sharing. The schools are allotted I think the number is 20.5 million. Is it too windy for you guys? You hear that wind at all?
It's okay, and our editor will take care of that stuff.
Okay, I mean, I can move into a less windy spot.
No, it's good, man.
Um,
No, because this is really interesting, and I know a lot of our
oh,
listeners have no idea.
okay. So basically, every university, the athletic department's allotted. They have this settlement, and what this settlement is, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but from my understanding, a settlement is when two sides make an agreement, kind of outside of the court or with the court's help on something. So there's been so many people have sued the NCAA over the years for whatever monopoly, not paying student athletes, anything that the NCAA they finally have kind of got a lot of these cases together and they're settling with they're settling with who's suing
He
them.
had O'Banions, or was it Charles
Yeah, all
O'Banion?
that stuff. Yeah,
Name,
all that
image,
stuff.
and
Yeah,
likeness.
yes. There's so many of them I don't even know. I mean, the biggest one right now is called the House Settlement. That's what we're working on now. And through this settlement, the NCAA has agreed to let the institutions directly pay the student athletes through revenue that comes through the athletic department. So now so the number they came up with is 20% is kind of a rough estimate of the budget for a high level athletic department, right? What we'd call like a Power Four conference, one of the top conferences. So about $100 million is the overall budget. So these schools are allowed 20%, so it ends up being about $20.5 million that they're allowed to spend
On players.
uh, on players. And then your athletic director comes in, decides, well, we're going to spend this much for football, we're going to spend this much on men's basketball, and such and such and such. And then, yeah, then you go out and you negotiate with the agents, and you have kind of a quote unquote salary cap.
Wow.
How
And
about
and so
Florida?
even though it's called nil, name, image, and likeness, that's
Yeah,
actually got nothing to do with it now. Like,
that was how it started. So when they first allowed this stuff, right, you were allowed to make money based on your name, image, and likeness. So a company X would sign a deal with Stevie Pig Dog McLeod, and we're going to pay you this much money, and you would have to do something, a
be on an
commercial,
ad or something for
yeah,
the
something like
local
that
car
for sure,
dealer or something, and
yeah,
you got a
and
hundred
and
thousand
it
dollars.
and yeah, and you'd get paid for that, and but none of the money could be paid for play.
Yeah,
So,
but
and then of
that's all
course,
changed now. Okay.
hey, oh yeah, come on. I mean, you don't think these college dudes have figured that out right away? Then all the boosters got together and said, "Great, we'll form our own collective, and we're going to pay Steve McLeod to show up at the 3 birthday parties, and he's going to make a lot of money." And so it got out of whack really fast
Yes.
because, of course, it did. Because and then so it wasn't intended to be like this, but it got like that fast, and then it became a keeping up with the Joneses deal where everybody had to do it because it's the only way to be competitive. And so now I think we're getting to a better space, but I'm sure there's still going to be a few things we're not
So,
predicting that are going to happen.
so it's interesting you use the word salary cap. So it's more like a salary cap because here's the pie that
Yep.
Arizona across your football, baseball, basketball. Here's your pie that you have, and you're allowed to do 20%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
how about
the 20.5 for everybody is kind of the number.
and
Okay.
is that also split then with the women's programs?
Yes. Yes.
So
That sure
really,
gets tricky.
20.5, and you look at all you got basketball, football. Is baseball included in that?
Yeah.
Softball, women?
All sports could be. We have at Arizona, I think we have 22 NCAA sports. So they're all included in it. So that's where we got to make decisions on how
What
that money's
you're
allocated.
okay.
You know,
Because I
And that
read
would
like
be based
Kentucky.
on
here
how
I'm
much
gonna move
the
as we're doing
sport
this.
generates, right?
Yeah, you
Yeah, I
move,
mean
mate.
for sure.
Yeah, it's all right.
There's a bunch of factors, that could it could be based on revenue generation of your sport. It could be based on your athletic director wanting to improve football because football has the most earning potential. You know what I mean? There's a number of things.
Now,
Right.
can I also ask, Coach, what the portal? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
last year during the NC2A tournament, guys are announcing, "Well, I'm entering the portal." I mean,
Yeah.
as soon as they get knocked out, some of them even before they even play.
Yeah.
So does that portal, do they provide you a daily list of who's gone into this, or do you have
For
to?
sure. Yeah, no, they do. I mean, with the influx of social media, I mean, the moment somebody goes in the portal, they're going to post it themselves because they want everybody to know they're available. But yeah, the portal's been it's been all these things happen at once. So basically, the what happened was this, if you peel it back, roll back a few years, if you wanted to transfer, you had to go into your coach and say, Coach, I want to transfer. And your coach probably put you in a headlock and told you, I don't think that's a good idea. Or maybe they thought it was a good idea and they let you go. Then you had to get a release from your athletic department that says, player X is transferring. And then back in the day, the coach could even say, I'll let player X transfer, but he can't go to this school, that school, or that school.
Oh,
They could
really?
literally, yeah, back in the day, you could do that. And then basically, then it was like, okay, or you can't transfer to a school in your conference. So if you're in the WCC or the Pac-12, you couldn't go to another one of those schools. Then what happened is, of course, there's a
Someone,
media outcry. Yeah, it's
yeah.
just a lawsuit, whatever. And then now then boom, next thing you know, it's wide open. And then Bruce, what's been crazy about the portal is so that's the thing we haven't talked about all this that even made everything crazy was COVID.
Yeah.
So when COVID happened, games are being canceled and seasons and this and that are crazy. They basically said, okay, anybody who was playing during that COVID year automatically gets another year of eligibility. So you had this group of athletes that were good players, not good enough to be great professionals or go to the NBA, but they could make a lot of money staying in college. So those kids stayed in college longer. All of them played 5 years. And so that's what all those three things happened at the same time: COVID, transfer portal, and the NIL, and then these lawsuits. It's really been a wild few years, and
I don't know how you navigate all that. Like some of your assistants, are they on that every day giving you reports about what's happening in that place or that space?
yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, you have guys. There is I mean, I don't even know. There's literally a portal that we can log into that says if kids in because we can't contact the kids till they're officially in the transfer portal. So
Right.
there is a portal you go through your one of your NCAA identification deals, and you go and you can pull them all up.
So can they tighten that up? Can they make the portal window like, hey, it's between not during the NC2A
Yeah.
tournament, like
Well, the problem is um, that's still going to happen even if it's not during the NCAA tournament. Teams that are knocked out are going to be desperate to start building for next year, while
yeah.
teams are still playing. So they're going to be actively pursuing people behind the scenes. So it's I don't know if there is a perfect scenario. I think eventually the next step we're going to see. I don't know how it's going to happen because I'm just a coach, but I'm sure there's going to be some form of collective bargaining between a group of players and the NCAA or the institutions, and they're going to come up with some criteria. Maybe it's like, hey, you could transfer one time, but it's not until after your second year, and now they're starting to include buyouts in these deals, where if you do transfer, you got to pay back a certain amount of money. So,
Really?
so it yeah, oh, no question, 100%. Yeah, you have to. I mean, because this, how else do you protect yourself if you're an institution?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Mate,
it's wild.
Max McKinnon is close to us because we're good mates with Sammy.
Yeah, yeah,
You see, he's gone to LSU.
yeah, yep, 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 yep. I saw that.
Yeah. And you've got a young Australian on your squad, Anthony Dell, also, as I say that correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Del Orso. Yeah. It's real Australian last name, right? Really Australian last name. But yeah, hey, but of course we call him Deli, and I'm like, man, I'm like Anthony. I don't know if I can call you Deli because every time I think of that, I think of
Deladova.
Delavadova, and I have nightmares. So like, but yeah, we have Deli, and he's a great guy, and he's really come on, for us,
ABC here, Bryson James, you got
yep,
LeBron's son.
yep. He'll be starting here next year as a freshman. Yeah.
Then there was a really good article that I shared with Steve with CD Goya. Is that how we pronounce
Yeah,
it?
yeah. Guye, Guye. Yeah,
Senegal.
yeah, yeah. Senegal through Real Madrid. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And
See,
he's a great developmental big guy that I think has a lot of potential. Um, so yeah, no, I mean, normally, I mean, for us, I'm very comfortable with half our team being international. I mean, I think that's, I mean, if you look at the NBA teams now, I mean, a lot of them are built the same way, and I mean, that's just how the game's played, and so I
I
have
just
no problem.
admire the fact, again, you're recruiting your staff yourself. Yeah, here's a guy who's playing with Real Madrid, right?
Yep.
From Senegal. So you
Yeah.
guys got a very good network, a big blanket.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, like, listen, I don't, I'm never going to restrict myself based on a region, you know, and for me, it's always finding the best players that are the best fit for us. And obviously, you know, we want to have a, you know, you want to have a foothold in your home base, you know, and, you know, us being down in the southwestern part of the United States, you know, I think we, you know, in my opinion, have the, two of the top players in the country, you know, out of our area that are both coming to us next year, and Bryce James, and we have another kid that was playing at a prep school up in the New England area from the Netherlands. And he's a really talented young player, Dwayne Aristode. So
And
yeah,
how
so no,
many in your current squad were with you last year?
four main guys that you know you would call like scholarship level players, and then you know have a
Yep.
few walk-ons back. So yeah, so and I feel okay about that. I mean that's just kind of how this day and age is. You know,
Well, I read that Baylor had no one.
yeah, I mean yeah, and I don't know the ins and outs of how or why that happened, but you know, I mean a lot of schools are having less and less. So um, I'm really excited about the guys we have coming back. I think they give us a
And
great foundation.
so as a head coach, how do you develop your culture now with players rotating a little bit more through your program in the, well, four, it used to be 4 years. Is that 5 year thing going to go on forever or?
No, no, it's done. It's back to four.
Okay.
But
So in
let
that four
honestly,
years, you've always had like junior and
for
they
sure.
come through. And so they've had 4 years in your program, but you're now picking up people that are only got 1 or 2 years left, correct?
Yeah, I mean, some in some cases we have a couple guys that are, you know, like Jane Bradley, we going into his third year in our program. Mo Krivas, a kid from Lithuania, will be going into his third year. So we have a few guys, but Stevie, it's a great question, and it's something I spend a lot of time on. Is you know developing culture, and you know how do you build a team, and what has kind of been an era where so many things have changed that you could say people have gotten selfish. I mean, I don't know if they've gotten selfish or opportunistic, but at the end of the day, I mean, how we've decided to approach it is, you know, we obviously are participating in the NIL space, but we tell our guys, you know, hey, once we get to the fall and once you walk in that locker room, we're a college team, like any college team's always been. And you're going to get coached like a
Respect.
college kid. Yeah, but you're going to coach like a college kid. We're not going to sit around and talk about money. Here's the deal. I'm not going to sit around and bitch and complain if we're paying a guy a lot of money and he's not playing good. And you know, if you're playing good and you don't think you're making what you're worth, don't complain. You know, you deal with it after the season. And so on a day to day basis, we don't talk about NIL, and
And,
you know, we
and
just do the normal deal.
because obviously the ego of the NBA compared to the ego of a college player has always been very different, right?
I mean, I would say some. I would say the problem you're having now is kids are they're making real money, and it's just to make sure that they understand they still haven't made it yet. You know, if their lifelong dream is to play in the NBA, they're not there yet. So they need to act accordingly, and they're still fighting to get somewhere. And
Okay.
so I think a lot of it's just communication and messaging, and and just having them understand that you know, like, you know, just because you're making this much money today doesn't guarantee that you're going to make three times as much next year. You're going to be in the NBA. You got to. The NBA is a monster, and I've seen a lot of really good players not quite make it. And so you kind of have to have everything lined up and everything be right to give yourself that opportunity. And so my job is still to help them stay in that lane.
Coach, we have, the NBL here. We got a 10
Yeah,
team professional league. We had a kid named Rocco Zakarsky who's made
seen them. I've
himself.
seen them.
Seven
Yeah.
three.
So he's made himself available for the draft. But if they're playing in any professional league anywhere in the world, are they still eligible to?
I mean, yeah, listen, I think there's a lot of ways these kids are getting eligible. I don't know what I would assume, based on me being a college guy my whole life, that if you went through an NBA draft and got selected or didn't get selected, that should kind of be done with your college eligibility. That would be my assumption. But hey, don't quote me. So many things have changed. I don't know. But I do know there are lots of kids that had what would maybe in the past been considered professionalize themselves are finding ways to get eligible now. And so the NCAA's had to kind of stare themselves down and say, hey, if a kid made $50,000 playing in Germany, like we have kids making a lot more than that. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, exactly. So what do we? So I think they're navigating that, and I think to me, I think it's been pretty positive in how they're handling it. But
So
you're for Rocco Zikarsky,
if you go to the draft and I don't get selected in the draft, but I put my name there, I'm ineligible to go to college.
That's my guess right now. That's my guess. So, but I think my suggestion would be this, and I can say this. I'm going to preface it with a joke. Rocco Zikarsky should stay in the draft. And I'm just joking. I don't have any idea, but I do have a little bit of a vested selfish interest in that. I'm also the head coach of the USA U19 team that's playing in the World Cup in late June and July in Switzerland, and Australia
against Rocco.
Yeah, so I was saying Rocco should just I'd be fine if he really pursued that NBA dream because I'm sure he could make it.
There's other.
I mean, and this is just my opinion. Bruce and I have seen Rocco sort of grow up here in Brisbane. I think he could do with college basketball, in my opinion. But anyway, we'll see what happens for him in the draft.
Yeah,
I mean, great family, great kid. So I just hope the best.
I will say, I'll give and I don't know a lot about this, but I'll give the NBL credit. I mean, this rising star thing they created has been really interesting. I mean, it's giving kids another opportunity. And, I think maybe it was a brilliant idea when they did it. And then maybe with the influx of NIL and how fast it's exploded, maybe that's sucked a little bit of the momentum from it. But I think it's really interesting because a guy that I know well here, I know Jonathan Givony does a lot of stuff for ESPN and the NBA draft and scouting. And I think he's involved in that program. And I think it's really smart to give kids options. And, Australia is proven to be, if you're a good player from Australia, I think if you come up through the NBL and you do things right, if you're good enough, you're going to make it. If you're not good enough, you're not going to make it. And I think the same thing, if that same kid comes to the States, if he's good enough, he's going to make it. If he's not good enough, he's not going to make it. So, I mean, I think that's interesting.
We've got the most Australian kids playing in the NBA that we've ever had. And
yeah.
And I mean, I know there's a lot of European players in the, but we're a country of 25 million people. I mean, we love ourselves, of course, and we rate ourselves and think we're unreal, as you know. But the reality is we do bat okay for the size of our country.
Yeah. Hey, I was watching that Netflix documentary, Court of Gold, last night, and not even realizing we were going to talk about it today. But I think episode 5, I did not realize because I was over on Europe on a family vacation, just kind of following the Olympics basketball loosely, watching the USA team when I could. That you guys were up like 20 points on Serbia in the first half.
Yeah,
I mean that's crazy. In the quarterfinal, right? Was that the quarterfinal? Yeah, that's crazy, And then so I mean, no, Australia. Listen, Australia is a formidable force in FIBA basketball and in the world of basketball. They've done a great job. Oh, wow. Oh, hey, let's get our guest appearance here. Chanel.
Oh, hello.
And Luca.
Chanel, how are you, darling? Chanel, this is my friend Bruce. Can't you go? Hello.
Bruce Palmer, Chanel, nice to meet you virtually.
Can she hear us?
Yeah, can you hear her, Chanel?
Yeah, you can talk. And Chanel, don't worry. This is only going to be an audio podcast, so you didn't have to put all the makeup on Tommy's face.
Oh wow! Luca saying hi. Luca just said hi to you.
Who's our other visitor here?
He just woke up from his nap.
Luca. Say hi, Luca.
Hi, Luca.
Yeah.
He's going, what are they? They sound really funny, those blokes.
Yeah, yeah.
Tommy, I want to know about your thoughts, and I guess it was all financially driven. Bye, nice to meet you. The Pac-12 just going away.
Crazy. Yeah. I mean, man.
And now you guys are in the Big 12 or the
Yeah,
ACC?
we're in the Big 12. Big 12. Yep.
And
The
a
Big
couple
12
of
was 16
Stanford and
teams.
Cal went to the ACC. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, yeah. And UCLA and USC are in the Big 10. And Washington and Oregon are in the Big 10. And the Pac-12 has left Washington State, Oregon State. They've added some schools like San Diego State, and I don't know all of them. Gonzaga is joining it for basketball. So
Right.
yeah, it's really sad, like how it all happened and how it is all driven by dollars. And but it is what it is. I mean, I really the coaches don't get a vote in it, so
And
yeah,
an
I mean
awful lot more travel. So do you don't travel commercial, correct?
no. We charter, and it's not a big deal for us because for Arizona in particular, we're more east than people realize. You know what I mean? So for us to fly to anywhere in Texas is 2 hours. Kansas is 2 hours. So there's a few Orlando, your Central Florida, your West Virginia's. You're looking at 3.5 hours, stuff like that. So, but when you're traveling the way we do it, I don't think it's crazy. But some of these schools like UCLA and USC are having to go back and play Rutgers, Maryland. Now
Right.
that's crazy. That's all the way across that's Perth to
Busy.
Brisbane.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just for for a football game, and it's crazy. So yeah, it's definitely wild times, and
And a
and
football
we'll
team,
see how it
that's a
all ends
lot
up.
of bodies, right? That's a lot of
Yeah,
bodies.
yeah.
They move.
They move. They big planes. Yeah.
Okay. And
Man,
they
you
don't
got a
travel
lot of
commercial.
fans, Tommy, a lot of Arizona fans here. Like I said, it started back 20, 30 years ago when Lute Olson came out and did a bunch of clinics, and I
Yeah.
think they won it in 96,
Seven.
97. So the same year he brought
The
out,
fans remind me every day it was 1997. It's burned into my mind.
that was a hard one to win, and then so will the next one. But
Yeah, for sure.
you do have a lot of followers. I know I'm one.
Yeah.
My brother lived in Arizona. My late brother lived in Arizona, so I was tight with Westfall when he was the coach of the Phoenix. He went
Yeah.
to USC with my older brothers, so
Okay, cool.
I know how there's a passion for basketball in Arizona, and
Yeah, I mean, and especially Tucson, our community. We're south of Phoenix, like, you'd say a couple hour drive.
yeah,
And we're 60 miles from the Mexican border, and yet this town of like 1 million people, and it lives and dies Arizona basketball. And it's really cool. It makes it a special place to be.
What's
yeah.
the
Well,
what's the bear down? How do you
That's a great
explain that?
story. Well, I mean, there's a guy way back in the day that and in the 1920s. Oh my gosh, they're probably going to crush me here. I'm forgetting his name. I'm going to pull it up so I don't say it wrong. But he basically was an athlete, and he got in a car wreck,
Okay.
and basically I'm just going to say it's John. What's his name? Oh my gosh, here you put me
That's
on the
okay.
spot here. No, you're good. Oh,
We're
okay.
lucky we got a producer cut these things out so you won't
Okay. Yeah, you're gonna make me sound good. Okay, I'm gonna
yeah.
find his name here. So I'm gonna bear down
So
Arizona.
Bruce's son is our producer. He
Oh no, okay. John Button Salmon. Okay, so bear
okay.
down. So John Button Salmon, in the 1920s was a student athlete here, and football team captain, baseball player. He got in a car wreck, and basically, the coach came and visited him in the hospital, and they had a big game coming up, and John Button Salmon said, "Coach, tell the players to bear down." And so it's become a rallying cry ever since.
Okay.
So So
But
yeah,
it's
you know,
certainly very powerful rally cry. I mean, it's.
yeah. I mean,
I mean,
everyone kind of
everyone
has their
even in
little.
Australia knows it. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it is. It's kind of the thing they say here. You know, bear down, go cats. I mean, that's what you're supposed
Okay,
to do. Like if you're walking through, I mean, if you're walking through like an airport and you know you have an Arizona shirt and someone says bear down, the response is supposed to be go cats. And if someone
okay.
says go cats, you're supposed to say bear down because I guess it's a cool way. Those cool little rituals help connect people, you know,
Part of your
and
culture.
obviously, yeah, it is part of culture, and obviously, you know, and I know this about Arizona fans for the most part. They're not shy because I have to travel all over and do this and that. And if I'm going through an airport or in the line at the fast food restaurant to get lunch, I mean, the moment they recognize me, they come up and they tell me to bear down. So,
Okay.
yeah, so I hear it a lot.
That's it's very cool, mate. Like, what's the difference between like the Gonzaga college experience to the Arizona?
Well, I mean, you know, just they're both great places. Just Gonzaga has 7,000 students. Okay, and it's a great Catholic school to go to place, and we all know Catholics like to have fun, and there's no doubt about that, right? Well,
Correct.
Arizona is kind of the school that's 50,000 students, and maybe a lot of the students weren't good enough academically to get into maybe in a place like Gonzaga, I don't know, or didn't have the financial means. So it it, it has a very vibrant, large community of young people together that have a lot of fun. So
Okay.
well, I mean, a couple of the famous things like Revenge of the Nerds was filmed here on our campus. So
Okay.
so like I'm not saying that's how it is every day, but it's definitely a young, fun college atmosphere
Well,
down on campus.
you guys are the number one attendance for basketball in the country, aren't you, college?
No, no, no. In the Pac-12, we were, but
Oh,
overall, I mean,
okay.
our arena is like a little over 14.5, and we're a sellout or pretty close every night. Some of these places, Kentucky, Louisville, BYU, have these huge arenas, 20,000. So,
Right.
but
Uh,
we definitely have one of the traditional McHale Center. Everybody kind of
Okay.
knows the name. It's one of the iconic spots to play college basketball or watch a game.
Wow. Oh,
Hey,
mate, it's your journey is incredible, man. Like
here's a
I
little
just,
serendipity, if I can interrupt.
yep.
My nephew Derek Palmer does the television for your women's softball.
He
So
lives in Tucson.
he lives in the surrounding area. I mean, he was born
Oh,
in
that's cool.
he was born in La Crescenta, but he in California. But yeah, so when the last time I was there, we met up. He was doing the UCLA. This is back in the Pac-12 days.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh,
and
that's
that's
really
why
cool.
I've got some affinity, I mean, but
Yeah, yeah.
I gotta, and I give him a little bit of a shout out. I'll make sure that my son keeps that in there because I always send it to him because he is of the boy, he's in the
Yeah,
media. He's a sports broadcaster.
that's
Um,
awesome.
mate, how about, so we got other kids. Have you heard of Roman Supiella?
I
The
haven't, but better be taking notes right here.
Mate,
well,
I'm
he's
good.
and I
he's
probably mispronounced his name because my research is poor.
Yeah.
The Samoan kid, 6'6".
Okay.
He'll be on the Australian under-19 team. Another
absolutely is.
Cooper Rawlings, 6'10",
Okay.
long, can stroke it. He's a Brisbane cat. These are both Brisbane
I
kids.
mean, Roman looks
Awesome.
like a man amongst kids in his age group. Like
Kind
he's a
of like
man.
you did back in the day.
Mate,
Let's
as
say
you know,
Roman
I was a
might be
rugby
just that
league
little
player
bit.
on a I was a rugby league player on
Roman's
a
a little bit of
basketball
a
court.
cleaner player and a little bit
Yeah.
better athlete. Uh,
What? Cleaner than the pig dog? Come on.
Big dog known to get guys tripped up, knees in the
Uh,
short ribs. No, but there's a few, and you are the head coach of the USA under-19 team.
Yep, yep, yeah. I did last year. I did the U18s, and they asked for a 2-year commitment. So we won the Tournament of the Americas and qualified for the World Cup. And no,
When
I mean
is that?
I mean it's like I don't know, June 28th to July 6th in Switzerland, in
Right.
Lausanne, Switzerland, and it's a big deal for us in the U.S. Like for us that are that take international basketball serious. The FIBA U19s is probably I mean I'm not an expert, but from what the experts have told me within USA Basketball, it's the second hardest competition to win, besides the any senior team competition, just because we're going basically with kids that are high school to college kids, and a lot of the competition we're playing against, I mean, Rocco Zakarski, these guys have been training professionally for the last couple of years,
And playing with men.
so and playing with men. So it's a real significant deal. Like, yeah, it's really, and then obviously the European kids are doing the same. So, yeah, it makes it really interesting. So, like the last, what was it 2 years ago? The last time U19s was in Hungary, and we didn't medal. So, yeah, so
But
they're
would
they're
that
on my
not,
ass.
yeah, but would that not be more important now to these under 19 US teams and so forth, because the world's never been closer to America?
For sure. There's no doubt. I mean, it's super,
you
but
guys, you didn't have to develop talent because you just had it all.
yeah, for sure. And we do still have more talent. We do. By volume, we do. Now, I mean, would help our cause if we could ask Cooper Flagg to miss his NBA when he's going to be the first pick in the draft to come play for the U19s. So we miss out on a lot of those kids. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right.
Like that are eligible to play, but that's no excuse. I mean, it's a tough competition, and
Which makes it
it's
fun,
something.
right?
Yeah, no, it makes it fun, makes it challenging. But when you have those three letters on your chest,
Yeah, that's a mate,
when
that's
when the
so
order
cool.
when the order is USA, not AUS, like I can't lose. You know what I mean? I have to win. So like
So
that puts some real pressure.
let me file this into a point. When do you start that selection process?
Well, I'm working with a guy named Michael Brooks, who's our youth programs coordinator, and he's come up with a list of guys that are going to tryouts, and we'll start tryouts, probably around I think like June 12th,
Will
and
that
then
be in Arizona? Will that be on your
no,
campus?
no, no, it'll be in Colorado Springs at our Olympic training
Right,
facility.
right.
So we'll all meet there, and we have a committee. It's going to be led by Jamie Dixon, and like three or four other college coaches and maybe other guys, and they kind of help whittle down the players, and then we got kind of end up getting to a final 12, and that's the team we roll with. So yeah, it's a process, and it happens fast, and it's and we're basically having to do like 2 a day type preparation, because hey, there's a lot of things that go into winning a game. You know what I mean? There's situations, free throw blockouts, presses, comeback plan, all these things, and you're trying to do
Short,
this,
short
with
period.
crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's
And
yeah,
then
so it makes it a great challenge.
the selection piece, we've talked about this a few times on our podcast about often you're working on the ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th player, because 1 to 5 they work themselves out pretty easy, and so you end up spending all your time on the back half of the roster.
Yeah,
Do you find
uh,
that?
for sure. I mean, I'm sure there'll be some of that. But what I found, over here, there is so much talent, and at a certain point, it is so even. A lot of it comes down to preference, maybe a little bit style of play, maybe a kid having a good couple of days of camp versus a kid not having a couple of good days of camp. But a lot of times, those kids that don't get selected in a couple of years' time will end up being drafted higher or have an NBA
Right.
career, where a guy that is selected won't. So just making the team in and of itself doesn't, guarantee you that your career's set.
Still got to do the work, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I had a kid a couple of years ago, Dalen Terry here, who went to the U19 tryouts, was one of the first guys cut. I mean, probably 25 to 30 of the 30 guys that went. He was the first guy cut. He came back here and he ended up the next year, like you're taking, I don't know, a year later, he's the 17th pick in the draft. So, it's really interesting how it works. And so, I remind the kids all the time, like, hey, this is really hard. It's going to be pretty subjective, so you don't crush yourself. And if you make it, feel good about it, but understand that you haven't made your ultimate goal yet. And if you haven't make it, there's nothing wrong with having a little chip on your shoulder, and
Yeah.
finding something to motivate yourself and so you can maybe use that as a catalyst to kickstart your
To
next push in
improve
development.
yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
Mate, the alumni of Arizona is crazy.
Yeah,
Like past players, like I see them turn up. Like I follow you guys obviously on all the socials and everything, and
yeah,
holy dooly, you got some amazing
yeah.
guys. You know,
Yeah, the
Steve
great
Kerr,
guys.
like holy,
Yeah,
that must be an
yeah.
amazing relationship to have.
Well, it is. He's been great to me. He and I have not only a connection through USA basketball. Coach Few was his assistant on the,
Yeah.
the last World Cup in the Olympic team. And then so we have Arizona basketball, USA basketball, and then we're also kind of kindred spirits. So we communicate all the time, and he's been great to me. And he's come to some games when he can. And last night, even at his press conference, when they beat the T Wolves in game one, he came out wearing an Arizona shirt. So, so all my friends start texting me, like this is just a great person. And then, yeah, I mean, come on, the list of good players. I mean, it's even scary to even start to mention it because you're going to forget.
Oh, I
You're
know,
going to
but
get
you know, like
10 of them. Like,
I know, but they're just you just constantly you see at one of your games one of the past players there and you go,
yeah,
oh, I didn't even know he played there. Like,
yeah. I
holy,
mean, yeah,
Well, you
Richard
get
Jefferson,
Mathurin now,
Gilbert,
right? Isn't he
yeah,
Arizona?
yeah, Ben Mathurin and T.J. McConnell is
yeah,
also on that
That's right.
team,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and
yeah.
then I had recruited Andrew Nimhard, and coached him at Gonzaga. So like when you watch him play, I mean, three guys I know really well, are big significant contributors. So that's great. I mean, and, one of the things here that's really interesting, and I think how I would equate it for Australians to understand is, you got this private school system, and like in
yeah.
Brisbane, have all that. You'd say all the names, Churchy and
And Terrace,
and it's Terrace and all these names, and the affinity that the alumni feel for those schools is the same way these players feel for their college. And
yeah,
so it's something they carry with them for the rest of their lives. And I tell them all the time, like there is a value in staying at one place and creating your own little legacy there. Because when you're 35 and you're sitting on your couch and your career's ended and you have your son on your lap and Arizona's on, that is going to be something that a connection and a relationship you and your son have for the rest of your lives. You have a common team to root for. Even randomly, just met a guy a couple of days ago. See if this shows back your name. And Bruce said you have to dig back in the archives here. Uh, Dylan Rigdon. You guys remember that name? He played down there for a little bit back in the mid '90s.
who do you play
Dylan,
You guys
for?
got
what's the surname?
Rigdon, Rigdon. He played there for a little bit, but I'd met him, and this is a former Arizona player, a name I kind of vaguely recognized. And I met him at an event in Southern California last week, and he had played in Australia for a little bit for a cup of coffee.
Okay.
Um, I know another interesting story name from Blast from the Past, an Australian guy, American guy who played in Australia, Mike Champion. You guys remember that name?
Yes. Yeah.
Played at Gonzaga with Stockton. Well, his son just ended up finishing being a walk on here for me.
Oh, really?
Uh, and so yeah, so you have all these really cool relationships. Hey, my battery's on 5. Do you guys mind if I go
Yeah,
get my
yeah, yeah.
charger here?
Mate, you've
Okay.
been very generous with your time, and we tend to say here we're going to tie this in a bow. And
You want
Bruce
to do
is
that
the
now?
best. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Wait.
Wrapping it
I,
up,
I was gonna
maybe.
I was gonna go get a refill on my Bundy here.
Well, yeah, are
No,
you
you're
still
right.
able to keep chatting? Is that what you saying? You
Yeah,
just
yeah,
want
I can't. I can't. No, no. But I was just gonna get my charger because I didn't want it to
Okay,
die
yeah.
off.
Well, go do
Yeah,
that. Go do it.
give me 1 minute here. Good.
Back
Okay,
in the
we're
house.
charging. We're on 3%. Save the day.
Okay, mate. Your love of Bundy rum, which I'm a big fan of, and I said to Bruce, part of the anyone going in and out of Australia to America that's any relation, like the price of entry is always back to the States was a
Yeah.
bottle of rum, right?
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, Trump has his tariffs, and I have my tariff. You know what I mean? A bottle of Bundy. uh, no doubt about it. It's funny, Stevie. You mean you got me onto Bundy, and I like a good Bundy. I mean, I like a dark and stormy. I like a Bundy and cola. But what's funny is over here, all the other Australians I talked about, like Delhi and these guys. I mean, the moment you say Bundy, they turn like pale and like they're scared. You know what I mean? And like, I don't know if it has the best reputation outside of Queensland. in the country. You know what I mean? In Queensland, you guys act like it's mother's milk. In the rest of
Well,
the country, they're like scared.
it is mother's milk. Mum put it in our, she put it in my bottle. That's how you got to sleep when you
Uh,
grew up in Bundy. But hey, mate, again, we're not going to take too much more of your time.
yeah.
But Bruce and I, we have a lot of coaches that listen to this
Mhm.
podcast. And the way that basketball's changed, if you think about how your teams played when you started in Gonzaga and how you play
Yeah.
now, more of this positionless type basketball. Is that how you finding? I mean, we spoke to Sandy Brondello recently, and she talked to that. That's what they're doing at the Liberty this year, and also the Opals.
What's funny, Stevie, is I've kind of held on to the old school deal. I mean, we haven't changed much, and
Okay.
I think we were maybe ahead of the curve, with maybe using multiple ball handlers, playing 2 point guards together, having skilled bigs, but we haven't went to just a pure positionless deal. And part of the reason I think people have gone positionless is because I just think it became harder to find bigs for a while, and so it's almost out of necessity people were doing that. But if you're watching these playoffs now, a lot of these teams are playing two bigs, and the NBA playoffs, and so uh, I just think that, hey, if you have big guys on the floor who can protect the paint and dominate the paint on the offensive end and guard their position well enough, man, that's a lot. You
And
got to
when
make
you
a
mean
lot of
guard their
threes to beat that.
position, you mean they got to be able to defend the three.
Yeah, if they can defend the three, switch. If you're four or
Hmm.
you're five, can switch some ball screens and kind of negate that advantage a little bit and assert their advantage at their size. I think that's a winning formula. And so, yeah, I mean, I honestly haven't I understand analytics. I've always done analytics my own way. I haven't stepped over that threshold of we're going to shoot as many threes as we can because I still think what's hard to figure out, but people aren't counting in the analytics is free throws, foul pressure, and what happens when you have foul pressure on the other team? Well, their best player now has 3 fouls. Is he as aggressive as he normally would be? How do you factor that in? I'm sure there's a way somebody can figure it out, but like to me, that's the winning formula. And
Okay.
now, listen, you have to be able to shoot the ball and make some threes. But does it mean everybody in your team has to? I don't know. I mean, not. What if you have a 7-2 guy that can dominate the paint? And what's better, a 7-3 guy that shoots 30% from three and can't offensive rebound, can't transition in defense, can't bar ball screens, or maybe a 6'11 guy with a big ass that dominates the offensive glass and gets to free throw lines and fouls guys out and finishes in the paint. You know what I mean? Like to me,
Yeah.
that's it. Like I haven't I don't get all caught up in the emotions of analytics or the game needs to be played a certain way. No, listen, I understand. If you have a great shooting team and all five guys shoot threes, shit, that's pretty hard.
And
You know?
there's a lot of you switch everything because everyone's can
Yeah.
defend everyone. Like there's some teams their five can defend the point guard.
Yeah,
Like
for sure. I mean, there's value in that as well, but I think there's also value in traditional ball screen coverages.
nice.
Okay,
Can
so we're
we
not.
ask that, Coach?
Yeah,
Defending the ball screens, what we all as coaches, like, what are we going to do on side pick and roll, step ups, middle pick and
yeah,
roll? Do you guys change for opponents, or do you have
for
one?
sure. Yeah, we do. We change for opponents, and we're going to continue to evolve that because I think that has to be. You have to continue to evolve as a coach in that area because to me, I'll say one of the big differences in basketball now when you start building your defense, literally the first thing you have to address is how are we going to guard pick and roll. And
100%.
maybe 15 years ago or 20 years ago, it's like you're doing a shell drill, and jump to the ball and all this. And that stuff's still important. Positioning, come on, it's really important. But like I think it is changing ball screen. I just think there's a lot of value in like what if you have a big you can play in drop coverage and your guards are tough as nails at getting over screens and you're forcing everything downhill and then you're not having to tag and give and kick out threes to shooters. You're making everything a 2-on-2 game. Okay, I think there's also value like what Houston does. Every ball screen with Houston, they're putting two dudes on the ball.
Yeah.
Like the guy on the ball, he's got to get off it. But it's not even easy to get off it because they're so handsy, so aggressive, so long. And those other three guys are so active. It's like their advantage is when you start trying to attack them in ball screens and now they're in rotations and they're so good at it, like it's so active that they kind of wear you down. So I think it's just I think what's really cool about the game is there's so many ways to play it,
Yeah.
and you're looking at hey, a few years ago, icing ball screens or no middle defenses became a real thing. And for some reason, they've kind of gone away. A few teams are icing here and there and doing it effectively, but more and more, I'm seeing more teams now are drop, switch, trap, type ball screen coverages. Is what I'm seeing here more and more. So
that's the
um,
defensive side of it, but offensively, you also because you're using pick and roll as an offensive weapon, correct?
yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure, for sure. We're a team a little different.
we,
Like I don't play. Bruce, what are you going to say? You had a question?
No. You're good,
Okay,
man. Keep going.
I was going to say we I'm not a guy who tries to be perfect on one ball screen. I want to accumulate two or three in a possession if possible. But we're also going to be as aggressive as we can at every ball screen and be opportunistic. And to me, when we talk ball screen offense for us, the number one thing is passing. The objective for us is to create an advantage somewhere and play through that advantage. And one of the most important things I think to do that is really under utilized in the U.S. or undervalued, and is really valued in Australia is the ability to hit the roller. If you can hit the roller, that's the catalyst for everything offensively. For you, because when a lot of times our scouting will look and we'll say, hey, player X, man, he's a good player, he's quick, he's shifty, this and that. He's only hit the roller 4 times in 20 games.
right.
So, guys, what's that telling us? Well, that's
Can't
telling us
pass.
that yeah, or not passing, or he only hits the perimeter passes. You know what I mean? So maybe in that scenario, you could be a little higher and tighter up with your big in his level and keeping that guard's penetration limited. And, we're going to tag some, but we're going to make him prove he can hit the roller before we're going to give up the kick out three because we know he'll throw the kick out three. So, to me, that's how your mind has to go scouting wise, and now in Australia, you guys have a great tradition of being really good passers. So like when you play, Randy Bennett's teams from St. Mary's, I mean, they can hit the roll. If you don't guard the roll, it's over, and then they can really hit the roll. They can make the reads. Maybe their weakness is the ball handler doesn't score as much.
Right.
So you're always tilting your coverages, So to me, that's why you have to give yourself multiple options defensively.
That's why we love this game, right? And
No,
Bruce
no,
and I,
love it.
because it's like this amazing fast game of chess,
Hey,
and
unbelievable. Hey,
and it doesn't matter
I
what you run; it's how you execute. Correct?
yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. And for me, like I'm humbled by the game every day. I mean, I'm still learning so much, and some days I'm like, holy shit! Like, I guess they say I'm a good coach, but man, I don't feel like it. Because I'm like, I'm struggling with this or struggling with that, or my team's not doing this well. So you're constantly learning and evolving. So at no point do you ever think that you got this shit figured out. I mean, I
Yeah.
know that. Like you never, because you know what? I mean, I tell people like, at my level, that coach I'm going against, he also lives in a big house. He's good too. So
Yeah.
like it's really challenging.
Because
And
they
then so
scout the shit out of you as well.
yeah, and they're good coaches too. And so so then what it does come down to, it comes to the execution of fundamentals over and over. And then being able to scheme and game plan. And of course, you have to have an identity as a team. And here's our non-negotiables. These are the things we do well. But you also have to have some give and take, because how I always think my mind goes is like, if our plan A um, is gets his ass kicked by their plan A, then I need to have a plan B. And if my plan B can beat their plan A, in that game I'm probably going to focus on a plan B.
Yeah.
But to me, you got to give yourself multiple options. To win games, and because they're really hard to win.
Mate, that's That's a great insight, and I appreciate that because I mean there is a lot of talk about that positionless because all the bigs
Yeah,
can shoot threes now. But I just love it that it's a game of chess and it doesn't
for sure.
you could run a flex play and score easily because if you execute flex really well and all the options are flex, it's hard to defend.
Well, I agree 100%. Like for me, I spent last off season working on like Spanoulis actions and some of these new trendy things, and I'm like, you know what? You know why Spanoulis is a great play? Because Spanoulis was the guy running it. There's a great Greek player, and he was amazing at it. So to me, I'm like, you know what? I am going to go back to like, some of our sets were going to be simple, flex based stuff.
Okay.
Maybe a pin down here and there. I mean, hey, flex. When I say flex based, it might be, one cross screen, one down screen, and then we're playing out of that. We're not going to turn it six times
Yeah,
and
yeah, just go back
catch it
and
at the
forth.
elbow. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, we're not playing. It's not like the
But you're
'80s.
using a
You
flex
know,
cut, a flex
yeah, he's
pattern
a
to get
flex
into
guy. Yeah, for
something.
sure,
Can
100%,
I can
100%,
I
or
pick your
a back
brain?
screen. Yeah,
Let me
for sure.
pick your brain, Coach. Defensive transition. We
Hmm.
have a thing here, and Sandy, our Opal's a great coach, won the championship of the Liberty, Sandy Brondello. They're tagging up.
Yeah,
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 you
yeah.
familiar with the
Very, very interesting concept. I mean, I started to look at it a little bit. For me, what's really interesting is, man, obviously transition defense is important,
critical?
but I also think you can overemphasize it because to me, if we don't have guys that are sprinting back and trying hard, what are we doing? So like I got in transition defense is so random, especially now with the teams shooting threes more freely. You can't stop a team from shooting a transition three. If a team wants to shoot a transition three and it's a priority for them and they want to play fast, it's going to be really hard to stop them. Because like, is it good defense to stop the transition three but give up a layup? So like to me, like so what I'm saying is I'm probably from the camp that's probably not as popular, but like I don't mind the game getting going up and down. I want teams to think they can run with us because we play at a fast pace and we're very comfortable playing fast. And the way I look at games, I'm slicing and dicing it into 6 possession, 5 possession little stretches. Like we won that 6 possessions 9-2. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And like a 7 point gap is big over the
Yeah.
course of a game because we're just trying to win by one, right? So
Yeah.
like so like and I don't, you never know when those segments in the game are going to happen. So like I'm okay if we give up a transition basket or a basket and then we run it right back at you and then you run it right back at us and you run it right back at you, like and then and it's what we do and we're comfortable doing it. I think there's a lot of those segments we can win. So to me,
Are you winning that
and
because you're more athletic or you're in
or
greater condition?
any of the above, or you're more comfortable doing that.
Yeah. Okay.
And because like, hey, what and to me, what's your best transition defense is your offense and scoring the basketball or offensive rebounding it. That's your best. So I want teams to fear us on the offensive glass, that they're afraid to leak out. They're afraid to play fast. So I'm okay sending 4 guys. So where I think the tag up stuff is interesting, could you do a deal like where your 4 and your 5 go to glass? Like they're nuts. Like they're going to the glass. They're hell bent on getting an offensive rebound. Could your 2 and your 3 tag up? And to me, what I see the value of tagging up is you're getting close to the guy. Your guy. I understand the defensive transition thing, but if I'm close to a guy and I'm a little hungrier, can I beat that guy to loose balls?
Right.
Because I'm assuming you're probably going to get a lot of the rebounds that are tipped around, the second effort rebounds, the longer rebounds, and the tag up stuff, And so I think I think it's fascinating. I think it's really really interesting. But the question I have: how does tag up work against a team that wants to play really fast? What if
Well,
a
Because you
team
can't.
is
I can test the shooter and run out. I mean,
yeah
there goes your tag. Oh, we got to.
yeah
Because I asked that of
yeah
Sandy, and it was part of the style of play here in Queensland. And I was sitting with an NBL one player, and he said, "Geez, man, they just contest and go. Your tag up is out the door." So,
yeah,
the closest defender to that's got to take the run out.
yeah,
And,
yeah. But
so
hey, there's always a way to attack everything, and I think a lot of times when you kind of drill it, but pull it back, I mean, still, there's three things that are driving winning: uh, offensive and defensive field goal percentage, it's your ability to make shots and defend, uh, controlling the glass. I mean, I don't care if we're talking rebounding percentage, plus minus, whatever you want to talk, and taking care of the ball or creating turnovers. I mean, those are still always going to be the three most dominant areas. And then, little things for me, I look at, so, hey, team X might say, hey, we want to shoot 53s. Okay, great. You're going to shoot 53s. Wow, it's 150 potential points. Okay, I get it. That's a lot of points. But I might want to say, I want to shoot more. I want to make more free throws than you attempt, over the course of a game. So if we're 23 for 30 from the line and you're 7 for 10, that's 16-point gap you got to make up. That's over. You got to make 5 more threes, and then we haven't even counted the twos. So there's so many ways you can slice it. I feel like literally when the game it is. And when I say I'm not an analytics guy, I'm not an analytics guy, but I'm a math guy. A lot of times these games are math equations. Or Steve, I like what you said, the analogy of a chess game that's very fast, And so I think it's all the calculus you're running in your head as a coach, and how you want to. But you have to be able to coach to those things, and your team has to be able to have that identity. And so for me, we're a very fast playing, movement based team. We want to attack the paint. I'm always a big believer over the course of 40 minutes. I want to shoot 24, 25 threes, but I also want to shoot 30 free throws,
Right.
Which is a high number.
It is a really high number.
Yeah, but we're probably not quite getting there, but that's the ideal. Let's say, because if we're doing that, we're attacking the paint. Yeah. If we're attacking the paint like that, over the course of the time, I think we're going to get 20 great looks at three. And hopefully we have the right guys shooting them. And
because you're attacking the paint there, dropping in to help you kick it.
Yeah, and your offensive rebounding, right?
Yeah,
or get to the free throw line.
And the other thing, we talked about this earlier, the depth of bigs. If we're attacking the paint and there's a not a lot of depth inside for teams because they're deciding to play this positionless basketball. And now if we're playing against a small lineup or their backup five or their third string 5-man for segments in the game, we should have a significant advantage for those minutes.
Yeah, right.
And so I think there's lots of ways to look at it. I mean, that's how my mind works, with this stuff more than just like being fascinated with shooting threes, which is crazy because all I could do when I played was shoot threes.
Well, so you thought.
No, it's true. I couldn't dribble. Come on. Like they didn't teach dribbling back in the day. They taught triple threat.
Mate, because we've taken a lot of your time and you've been so generous. I just want to ask something I've asked you before. Any coach that's listening to us and loves the game, that you advise a young basketball player, and the word that you said to me is repetition. In terms of they can go to training 5 times a week, but it's what they do outside of training. Is that your belief?
100%. Like I just always believe. I mean, practice is important, and let's say you're a young coach. I mean, so you're a young coach planning a practice. You're an assistant coach going helping a practice. What a great rep. Okay, now what are you doing outside of it? Did you rewatch practice on film? Okay, what are you studying outside of your head coach, or your system to learn about the game? Because the greater your understanding you have of the game, and you have a better idea of what people are going to do, it expands your mind, but it also helps prepare you to play against people. And so yeah, I mean, I think if you're a young coach, man, if you put in time, like disciplined time outside of practice, have a little bit of a plan. And I was going through the exercise today. Here's kind of my off-season plan on how I'm going to grow. I got a couple books, I'm going to read. And it might not be basketball, but it might be about the mind, or it might be about building a culture. I mean, there was a great book on culture written by a Maori British guy, so he spent time in England and New Zealand, called Belonging. Really cool book about, and you guys know a lot about the tribal cultures down there, whether it's, the Aborigines or,
Yep.
down the Maoris, like really cool stuff, how their sense of family and culture and community, so like you read stuff like that because that stuff's as important as your X and O's.
Yeah.
And so you spend time on that, and then what are you going to do X and O wise? What are you going to do program wise? What are you going to do to help continue to develop your staff? What are you doing to develop yourself? I mean, and like, listen, I'm lucky. I can do this at a level where I don't have any other job. This is my only job. It's a lot. It's a big job because you make it a big job because you're spending all this time outside, continuing to get better because it's an incredible challenge.
Yeah, but it's nice to do something you love, right?
I mean, it's the old deal. You never had a job, and I've never had a real job. I've done one job interview in my life, and I've done one resume. And the one job interview I did was Arizona. And after I got the Arizona job, they asked me to submit a resume. So I had to kind of, and that
Make
was
one
before
up.
this. Well, that was before this Chat GPT stuff. So I couldn't just go make a resume. I had to think oh
Do
yeah,
it
I
yourself.
was the head coach at St. Lori's, and
Yeah, man, I
uh,
can't believe you didn't ask me to be a referee.
a referee or a reference.
A reference, yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Reference.
You would be a shitty referee because that game would be like rugby league.
Oh, mate, you're a champion, mate. All I have having this conversation just makes me more determined to come on a plane and come and see you
Yeah, let's
guys. But
go.
I thank you for sharing Ronnie's number. I'm going to give him a call. Bruce ties things in a knot. Bruce, it's over to you.
Tommy, again, all of our listeners, we've been blessed to have Tommy Lloyd, the head coach of University of Arizona. We're going to be following you closely again. Not that we haven't been, but all the best for your season and for the upcoming World Championships.
Yeah,
Thank you, Coach.
No,
mate,
thank you guys. Appreciate
man,
it.
and lots of love to all your crew. Okay,
Yeah. Same to you. All
okay,
right.
buddy.
See you guys.
See you,
Okay.
mate.
Bye-bye.